Now it's recording,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So I want to start with context, as is always good to
Hmm.
do. Of just thinking that you're interacting with this for the first time. Um,
Hmm.
your target audience, when they interact with this for the first time, are going to be in a situation where they're about to make a choice in life.
Ah,
They're going to do what's expected, or they're going to take the road less traveled. And whether they're someone who's thinking about college, or whether they're someone who is having a change of heart about their career and direction in life, we're catching someone at a crossroads. And
ah.
we have to take into account that there are going to be easier decisions to make and harder decisions. And I think that to go for what you're offering is going to be a harder sell. And I'll get to that in a minute. Um,
Sorry, what is going to be a harder sell?
I think that the OSE school is going to be a
Hmm.
harder sell. Well, I should be careful with my language. It's going to be the unusual thing to do compared to a lot of other options that would be out
Yeah,
there. And so we just
yeah.
need to take into account that situation that the person's in. And
Hmm.
so the other alternatives are going to be safe, credible, desirable, respectable, what I'm supposed to do. And so if you're
Hmm.
thinking of someone who's thinking about next step in their education, they're going to be faced with all sorts of things like this. They're going to be faced with history, with the fact that these are places that have been tried and tested. They're accredited in ways um, that they're comfortable with. They've got impressive architecture. They've perhaps been going for hundreds of years, and so they're in a strong situation in terms of getting their audience on side. Um, it's they're also going to be impressive to the parents who help make these decisions as well. So if I had a child who's about to go off to do the next stage in education, I want to know that wherever they're going is somewhere that's vaguely safe in terms of their future prospects. Now, none of this is to shed any negative light on what you're doing. It's just I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of
Yeah.
someone who's coming from a cold place and just thinking what's next.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think we really need to balance this tension between being expected and being unexpected, or being orthodox and being unorthodox. And we need to get both of these things. And the more we can seem respectable and normal and not normal's the wrong word again. Um, Respectable, credible, desirable. The safer we can make people feel in a number of departments, the more they'll feel that okay, there are some unusual things here, but we can that's okay because we know that we're safe. Um,
Hold on a second. Does that apply to the freaks?
uh, I, I I I would say that no, I don't know, but I would say that even freaks want to feel safe in a certain way. Um, I think everyone wants to
Hmm.
feel that you can get more and more way out, and there'll be a point beyond which everyone can feel uncomfortable. So I take your point that there are going to be people who really kind of relish the idea of not being orthodox. But even then, I think we need to,
Mm.
um,
Hmm.
even if we were going to make an exception for them, there's going to be a wide amount of the audience, I think, that are going to want to feel safe to some degree.
Hmm.
Um,
I would say just on that, like it's a good point, Martin. Like there are going to be people who are up for the unexpected, and then kind of we want that to some degree. And at the same time, it makes sense to cast a net that is wide enough to be
mm,
enticing people in, especially if we think for the future.
yes.
It might be that this initial run of people, they're the
Hmm.
real early adopters, but if we're looking
Hmm.
5, 10 years down the line, we need to create a positioning that will bring enough people in. They're probably all going to be quite
Yeah.
heterodox thinkers, but
Yeah.
they're going to, imagine a guy, if we forget about the 18 to 25, it's a guy who's 35 and he's like trying to convince
Yeah.
his wife, hey, I'm going to do this thing. She's a stakeholder as well, quite an
Yeah.
important one, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Ali.
Okay.
And so I'm just my concern as I've looked through your material is that there's something exciting about the open source approach. There's a leaning into process more than end result because you're constantly innovating. But I do feel that we have to show some way, we have to have a way of showing that there is a reliable end result that you can lean on with your imagination before you get there. And I just feel that a lot of the imagery is kind of more into we're a startup, we're exciting, there's things happening, we're trying things out, it's experimental, we don't know where we're going to go. And that's good to have that, but we need to also balance the alternative. And this is a big long ramble to say, this is where branding can really help in this situation, because branding often leans into the ideal more than the real. And we got to be careful here, because we don't want to be dishonest with people. We don't want to say, here is a presentation. You're going to go to Oxford University or wherever, but actually when they arrive, it's completely nothing like that. We need to make sure that when they arrive on your doorstep, what they get is what they're expecting. But because you have a vision of the world, and because you're leading into that vision, the vision is more developed than the present. The future is more developed than the present, and if we can borrow from the future and present some of that in terms of how well integrated everything is.
Future more developed than the present. That's a good euphemism.
Say again?
Future more developed than the present. That's a great euphemism.
Well, it is in your head, isn't it? Like you have a picture of what the future can be like, which is more exciting than the present right now. And that's where you're trying to take people from. And that's where we're trying to borrow from also in the branding. And so we don't want to have a disconnect between real and ideal, but we can lean into the ideal to some degree. And this is just a quote I love from Matt Johnson, who's branding psychologist. He says that having a great brand means you get to play the game of capitalism on easy mode. And so through this, what we want to do in this presentation is provide you with an identity which helps you to play the game that you're playing with your target audience in a way that's easier for you and more acceptable for them.
And we could almost, I think, in our case, we could almost subvert this by saying, having a great brand means you get to subvert the game of capitalism on easy mode as well, because there is that kind of tension as well, where there's this kind of bigger vision of a new way of doing things. So I think for me, there's that going on somewhere as well.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Or like, I look at it honestly more like Anna Wintour, right? Who says, no, you create the industry, you create the environment, create infrastructures, create architectures. Yeah. So that's really the mindset. But right, because we're saying subverted or transform, not subverted, but transform it, not even transform, but evolve it. Yeah.
So I've got three routes to show you. Each of these approach the problem in a slightly different way. I'm going to start with one that's closest to where you are, which is an evolution of where you are. And then by the time we get to the third one, that's going to be a much more radical transformation of OSE's identity. So this is leaning into the core polarity, which is your vision of this regenerative civilization, a future where technology, human beings, and nature all exist in a creative relationship together rather than a zero-sum game. If we flip that or we reframe that, we can think very much of it as technology in tension with nature, and man is somewhere sort of straddling between the two, or human beings. But this tension. It's also very much sorry if I go the right direction. It's also kind of a left-right brain thing again. And then if we think of that in terms of photographic expression, we've got the geometric mechanical machine and the workshop, all these sharp edges and sharp lines, all that sort of thing. And then the organic and flowing forms of nature in relationship with each other. If we take that to some sort of symbolic expression, then we've got the blueprint, which is something you've already used in the past, and this white line to represent that type of thinking and that type of being in the world. And then you can also have an expression of nature, which is moving away from the photographic into something more symbolic. I think this is called cyanotype photography, I discovered, but this laying on of plants onto a photographic, onto a light-sensitive surface. But what we're doing here also is not just trying to enter into the symbolic for no reason. It's that we're trying to give you an ownable visual style. And this is really important for a brand, is to have a way of looking at the world through its use of imagery, which can identify it. And that other people can't they might be able to talk in a similar way, but they can't present themselves in exactly the same way, because it's a way that you own. And so I know we've had concerns in the past about the fact that you're trying to talk about everything in a sense, but when it comes to the marketplace and you're trying to compete against other voices, which you want to get people's attention rather than other people than your competitors, having an angle on things is a very helpful way to go. So if we take the current logo, with this again very much leaning into the geometric, the left brain, the sort of mechanical side of things, we're going to try and rebalance that relationship so that the tension between the the left and right, or the natural and the mechanical is more correct. And so if we move from there, then we have the proposed logo, which is this one here. And so here we've maintained the geometric shape of the logotype. We simplified it so that it still has the spirit of the thing without being too literal. And this is a very key part of design a lot of the time. The less literal you can be, very often the more powerful a piece of design is. And so we've stepped away from the actual depiction of the joins and the rivets in the metal to having something that's suggesting mechanical and suggesting geometric shapes without actually saying this is mechanism. But then we've played it. We were in tension with that. We've got that in the context of a richly organic space, and it's interacting. So the butterfly is just one example of something that could be interacting with the logo. So everywhere we see it, we've got these two worlds coming together, and then even the blue in the background is somewhere between the sort of bright cyan blue of the blueprint, but it's also in a sort of earthier tone that sort of connects the two different worlds. Then we can take this further by saying that the left brain, the mechanical, is always going to be represented by this white line, which can draw things in different ways. This could be whether it's an illustration like this, or an icon, or it could be used in various different ways. But there's always this relationship between these two worlds. And so you'd keep the same typeface that you'd use for the logo can become sort of the key title typeface. And it all comes together as one big cohesive world.
Tell me about the butterfly.
So the butterfly.
How did you come up with butterfly?
What I'm trying to do there is say that the work that you're doing is completely in harmony with the natural world, to the point that the nature that's present around you would be happy to live alongside you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that you cut it. It's not that you just simply decimate a bit of land, and then that becomes, you're using the land simply as a space to do your engineering. It's actually that the worlds begin to interpenetrate each other. And also, just simply from a graphic design point of view, to have elements that can be sort of playfully interact with something furthers that idea. So the plants can overlap the logo in certain situations, or overlap the illustration. But I'm just trying to think, what are the different ways that nature can express itself? One is through flora, but the other is through fauna. And so can we get the whole gamut of nature to live there? Now, we don't want to have like happy bunny rabbits sitting by the side of your logo or anything like that. But can there be little things that suggest that this isn't just that it's nature here, but it's nature is flourishing in this place? And so
And Al, if you go back one slide, it might be worth sort of disambiguating that the logo, as I understand it, is open source ecology. The butterfly is an element that is an example of one thing that could interact with it right now.
Yes, thank you, Ali. So this is a dynamic thing. So there'll be situations where you only see the logotype on its own, just the text. There's no butterfly, there's no plants. It's just, all I'm saying here is that you can have things interacting with the logotype in such a way that there's constantly what am I saying?
Are you suggesting the kind of graphics we have here, like the butterfly and the fern and stuff, as specific to, like, we use it all the time, or are you just saying that's one example?
That'd be one example. So you could have a toolkit of parts. So it could be that we find what are the plants that are local to you, that exist in your vicinity, and how could we, and so then you'd have, like, I don't know, 5 different trees, 5 different up close plants, a butterfly, other types of insects, and you can put them together in a different way, so that every time, no, not every time, there'd be certain situations. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there is life happening around the logo.
Yeah, things
are changing. It's not always just fixed in place. And there would be circumstances if it's, say, I don't know, a very technical, functional piece of information where you wouldn't have those things. You just have the logo in one color on a white page with something else. But in certain situations where you want to bring the brand to life, and I'm going to get some of those up shortly. That would be where you want the thing to really come alive. So there's a range of. Ali, what you can say?
Well, I was going to say, like, I think a useful way to imagine it is, imagine this was a business card. Your standard business card would be the blue with open source ecology. there. That like that text is a bit like with Kainos. The logo is the text and the way it's written. And then you can do lots of different things with it. You could have in the bottom of the business card the plant. I like this a lot because you get the sense of what you're doing as being in tune with the natural environment instead of sort of overwhelming it. And there's something about like the old logo, which is kind of much
Yeah,
more
yeah.
joint and technical. But what you could do as well, and I've done this before, both with clients and my own businesses, is that if I'm saying, okay, let's imagine 2 years from now, you're pitching to the school board of Missouri or another state, right? And actually you're going to have a program where you're going to
Hmm.
get 18-year-olds going instead of university. You have guidance counselors coming, you do a session with guidance counselors, they really get what you do,
Hmm.
and that's an option for them. If you were pitching to them, I would instead of a butterfly or the plants, you would have a think about, okay, in this same language and energy, what image am I going to use that's really going to get the Missouri School Board super excited? And then we
Hmm.
do you do a bit of research, and then you have a whole design language already that you're like, okay, yeah, it's not a butterfly, it's like the state bird of Missouri, which I don't know if you know what that is. I don't, but we can probably find that out. Let's say it's an owl. We go, hey, let's put a little owl in the corner. So that is like a little hint, but you'll always have the same colors. You always have open source ecology kind of positioned in that way.
Thank you,
We
Ali.
have Bobcat here, which is cool.
That's quite
Let me
cool.
ask you about the typeface.
Yes.
You made it up, or there's nothing that exists like this yet, right?
No, this is an existing typeface. And if we
It's an
were,
existing typeface?
so this is a typeface you can use. But what I would probably also do, if so, just to step back a bit. So we're in this is the first stage concept presentation. And so
Hmm.
everything here is rough. Everything here, although it's been rendered on a computer, these are work in progress. And so if say you liked this concept, this was your favorite one, we'd go away and I would work on certain aspects of this in order
Hmm.
to tune it up and make it specific. So I would take this type and I would do various things to it in order to make it completely bespoke for your logo. But you'd also have the typeface that you can use in other contexts. So you can type in your logo typeface. And so there begins to get
Oh, wow.
some consistency. So you can,
What is this typeface?
what's it
It's
called
got a
off the top of
name?
my head? It
It's
has
like
got a
a free
name.
font,
It's called
or
Rigid Square. It exists in, you can buy it as a font and use it, or you can sign up to Adobe Fonts, I think it is, and use it that way. So and it's for one, it will come in different weights, and they will have, I think they're around sort of £30 per weight, if off the top of my head.
forever? That's one-time fee, or is it?
Um, I think you'd have to have a different license depending on how many machines have it. Um, and this is very standard rules of typeface license. So I think normally, if my memory serves me correctly, when you buy it, you've got the license for 5 machines. You can
What do
then
you mean
extend
machines? Computers?
or users.
Users. I
Uh,
see. Okay.
but alternatively to that, so I could make you a logo out of this, but then you could get a free typeface to do instead of something you'd have to buy. Now that'd be a slight shame, seeing as this typeface really ties into this concept.
Hmm.
And so I would recommend that you purchase the license for the typeface. But
Hmm.
there are different levels of expenditure you can do.
But it's not crazy money when you want to use
No,
it for, say, film or whatever. We're talking in the hundreds of dollars, not in the
yeah,
thousands. It's
Is that
very,
annual or is that one time?
it's one time.
it's one time.
One time.
Unless if you're doing a subscription model through Adobe, you pay, I don't know, a certain amount per month, and then you've got it for free until you stop using the Adobe suite.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um,
I would also say, well, on the
Hmm.
record slightly because we're recording, but off the record in the sense of like, I never once had any company get in touch with me about how I've used a logo, and I've used them in films. I've used it, all sorts. So it's good to get the license, but there's not very many people sort of like hovering around the internet trying to find who's used a font in a different place, and so there's a lot of, I think, flow and leeway between how you use it. Like, for example, if we use it as a stencil on a machine and we use it in a film, generally once you've got that one license, in my experience, you're good.
yeah, that's my experience too.
Yeah.
And so we want to honor the font creators, but at the same time, we want to do what's right for them. But that once you do that, there is a lot of leeway of how you can use it.
Exactly.
And so just to give an example of a sort of brand toolkit, this would be your logo. You have a visual language. There are your typefaces. So rigid, config, regular. So you'd have a headline typeface, and then you'd have body copy typefaces. So when you're doing the small text on a website or in a social media advert, and then you've got a color palette. And this is partly for me to just sort of show you the sort of kitted parts that go into making a brand in general. But it's also, I'm going to show you a comparison between school approach and also master brand approach, so you can see the difference between the two.
For the typeface, are we expected to, like, for example, if we do any graphical, like even on a wiki, we would try to actually get it to the typeface?
How do you mean on a wiki?
I mean, I'm sure you could probably install this font on a wiki, so that means we would brand our wiki as well as, okay, we use the config regular.
If that's something that you can do on a wiki, I don't know much about. I don't know anything about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm just saying, like, anytime I write, like where would I use the typeface? Anything official or anything public facing?
Yes. Yeah. And so on a website, you can certainly do that. If by wiki you mean just general website use, you can have it uploaded to a server, and then you can make sure that means that everyone who arrives at that website, they will have access. The font will be accessed on the server, and then all the text that you write will be in the right typeface.
I mean, do we want to go to that level? Because see, okay, the wiki is like Wikipedia, right? Thousands of users are going to be using it. Do we want them all using the same font? I'd say yeah, like for brand, right?
Yeah. Often I would say it's hard, it's very contextual, but generally, yes, it's great if there's a sense of as soon as you come to the forum, as soon as you come to a community, you're like, boom, this is open source ecology, and it's very subliminal in a sense. It's like I just know it's them, It's
exactly. Yeah, no, I mean,
and you could also make the background blue, and you could make you can brand. I do this with all of my if you look at my Substack, or actually where I do my online courses on Mighty Networks, everything is Kainos branded. We provide, in that case, Al provided me with the the brand colors, and I use the fonts, I use the colors, and it just everything that I guess every place you are is like immediately recognizable as you.
And that's great for typeface and colors. That's sort of a quick way of doing it. What you really want to do, though, and which is what we've done here, is to try and take that to the next level of your visual language has a way of communicating who you are. And not only that it identifies you, but it identifies the core meanings that you're about. And so this nature versus technology type of thing, that means that every time someone interacts with you, there's a slight jarring experience of, I wasn't expecting to get that sort of organic shape with that sort of blueprint line diagram. But in that slight jarring, firstly, it gets their attention, but secondly, it gives them a very slight paradigm shift into exactly what it is that you're doing, because they have to marry those two things in their imagination, and that slight shock is also a moment of realization. And so you can do a number of things quite quickly with good branding, and take them at a gut level quite a long way along the journey of knowing what you're about. And so that's something I'm always trying to do when I'm working, is make sure that just the way that you present everything doesn't actually identify you. It's very important to identify you. That's the primary reason for branding, but it secondarily communicates you at a really gut level. That's really important to me.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the concept. Like so you took there the Hab Lab, one of our structures. Looks like one of our structures, right? And then you've got the organics.
Absolutely. So I just redrawn that quickly, just to give an example. And again, this is rough. Cool. This is to give an impression so that you can get it and understand what I'm doing. But then just to say that this concept has legs in terms of the line art. You can imagine that line art in a lot of different ways. It could be the way you draw all the machines that you've done, again in a slightly more symbolic rather than representational way. So these are very flat graphics. How could you do that? How could you make that into not just a blueprint drawing, but actually get into the sort of actual visual language of how you present yourself? So these are just quick.
I mean, by the way, on that, I mean, that's going to be critical. I mean, we have OSE icons. We've done some work on it, and no, we never got the consistent high quality style. But if we can have people, so also when we involve graphic artists or designers or whoever else. Because one of the critiques is, well, I'm not an engineer. How do I get involved? Well, there's tons of ways you can get involved. So this could be one. We're actually doing useful technical images. I mean, they're graphical, but they correspond to technical reality.
Yes.
And did you see the? Let me just interrupt this because I think pattern language. Did you see the pattern language page on the wiki by any chance?
I may have done, but if you refresh my memory,
let me show you this, because this is what this is a big deal. This comes from Christopher Alexander's pattern language. But let's see, let me put that in the chat. So basically you can say, oh, a car is made up of these things. So by that, you're able to design a car by picking the icons. So look at that.
If I can get
scroll down. So initially we had introduction. You have a bunch of elemental icons. So for example, a representation of a CEB press is that icon if you scroll further down. Or for example, the car, or solar turbine combined heat and power. It's expressed by these icons. Or transportation, cars, tractors, other self-propelled devices. There are a bunch of these icons. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yes. For some reason, I can't
exactly.
access the chat right now. Come on, show me the chat. Oh, here we go.
Okay, take a look at that. Take a look at
I've got it.
The car, for example. It's an express, or scroll down to the square icon stuff.
Okay. Interesting.
Scroll down to like where you see the car. Because what I want to do is be able to get a person who has no skill at designing cars to take the icons and start designing a real car with how things. You see it? Transportation.
I'm not sure I found it.
So do the icons sort of represent, like, are they, let's say, signifiers to take the person to different aspects of the design, or like, how do they work?
They're actual design language, so they could be. That's why I'm saying this is multi-purpose. They could be used just for. Okay, let me chat box again. I'm gonna paste in the car directly. So what happens when you go to that? That's a car.
Got it.
You see?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. There's four wheels. They're all the same object, and then there's these other.
And you can make the actual icon combination to actually correspond to the the way it looks physically, like is implied in a car.
That is really cool, actually.
And
I like that idea.
This is absolutely powerful, because now you can talk about. Now you can take each one of those icons like a wheel, and you can make sub icons for what a wheel is made of, like rubber. Here's a ring. Here's whatever, the valve stem. So there's the 50 machine icons. And the other thing is, I didn't talk a lot about it to you, but all the technosphere, we're trying to say it's made up of about 500 primitives. So if you learn these 500 primitives, you know how to design everything from tractors and including rocket ships.
That's very cool. It's like it's not Minecraft for adults, I thought last week, isn't it? Like there's an aspect of that of real, like, just unbounded creativity, but with distinct blocks and distinct sort of aspects. I mean, it's quite a powerful story, really. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, no, that's super exciting, because now you're talking about children, board games, school materials, real and connected to real. This is basically this is like a peeve I have about schools in general. It's like they're doing all this stuff, but why are they not connecting to technically real or society real things in their games, right? Because then they could be getting ahead, step ahead in terms of becoming designers. I mean, designers of the world around them. You know what I mean? Okay,
I like that a lot. I mean, it's such a good learning tool as well, because if I imagine getting, like, my nephew who's really into Minecraft, who's 7, if I took him to let's say, okay, they live in Berlin. I take him to like an office building in Berlin, and I go, okay, let's look at this office building, not as just like one huge object, but many blocks that are made. So there's there's the structure, there's the windows, there's the electronics, there's this, there's that, there's the elevators, there's like there's cool learning.
And that's a manifestation of some of the cores we have, which is modularity and a construction set approach.
Yeah.
And those are development techniques. That's, like concurrent this is what enables concurrent engineering, where you have 1,000 people collaborating, and then you standardize. Like the part that we talk a lot about is called degeneracy, meaning reducing the complex set of nonsense out there to the most powerful, essential, multi-purpose, and meaningful, like as opposed to there being, like 100 car companies who make crappy cars, degenerate to one company that makes the superior car that's truly, truly superior on all fronts. Now, is that possible?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, is that possible? I don't know. It's definitely worth looking at, that we reduce, because there's so much technology out there that's maybe like non-essential or really crappy. Like, there's 100 designers that do crappy stuff. So once again, like the what is it, the law that says that 90% of everything sucks, pick the 10% that doesn't thing. Yeah.
This makes a whole lot more sense of one of the sentences in your email. You'd used the word degeneracy or degenerate, and I only read it in a negative way. I was thinking, I just couldn't make sense of the sentence, but now you've given me that context.
Yeah.
Helps me understand that term.
It's important. I mean, what I think with this route, we can do exactly that. I mean, because of that line art format, there's just almost, I mean, I suppose there's kind of an infinite amount of objects or symbols we could create, which also there is something, if you look at like what Al's created there, and if you look at the wiki, so the wiki, there's a functionalism to it, which, is one way to do it. And I think what's interesting about this is that there's that connection to nature that comes in, and it's got that element of fluidity and naturalness, and a bit more approachable for someone who's not an engineer, right?
Yeah. And when I think about, I do have a comment about thin lines. We were trying with the icons that we were doing before, we were trying for the thick lines because they're easier to see. That's just one comment. But the other thing is, now you get these, so look at the power of this in terms of graphical and lexical environments, right?
Yeah.
So now you take the pattern language icons and devices built in that, now you can hyperlink them. So you can link to the detail of that. And then you can hyperlink to the details of that. So you've got a mind map.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So
and I think this will work at a number of different levels as well. You can have it as the more symbolic. This is trying to communicate the spirit of the brand, which is very much sort of the previous. You're seeing my screen again, aren't you?
Yeah.
So very much more this sort of thing, where it's trying to depict an experience of something, and then get more into the much more technical thing, which could be smaller. The lines can be thicker, but there can be a hierarchy between these different worlds, of the really technical up to the brand experience. And so it's good to have something that spreads across each of those.
And one thought I had actually for the different icon styles, like for example, fat lines versus thin lines, that could perhaps correspond to level of completion or something like that, where you say, oh, this is just a airy concept versus, oh, this is solid and we got this thing.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, actually.
I mean, all these things would take a lot of working out. But
no, that's a lot of work.
But doable.
Very doable. Yeah. And just the one thing I remembered that Al and I spoke about last week around this is that, I mean, one of the things I like about this route is that the line drawings, which has this sense of sort of architectural design, it communicates these guys have got this. They're professionals. They know what they're doing, right? Without needing to say it. And that again goes back to Al's point about that. Okay, I'm going to spend 4 years changing my life, whether I'm 18 or whether I'm 35. I'm going to do this. We want them to feel that. Like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no,
that's a very good point.
That's good.
Thank you,
that's
Ali.
Pretty good.
I think anyone who works in blueprints, we kind of trust them. We trust them because implicitly it means that they're creating some sort of system that people are that's likely to be able to kill people if it goes wrong. And that there's an attention to detail, which means it's going to go right. And so whenever we see those sorts of things, we intuitively think trustworthy and reliable.
Because it's exclusive. Like you don't see the hippies doing that kind of stuff. It's typically associated with, okay, now this is professional grade.
Exactly that.
But we get both. We get the nature aspect. If you only went the nature, people would be like,
hippie. It's hippie.
hippie. It's hippie. I'm gonna go there and then we're gonna have cacao ceremonies and we're not gonna learn how to build anything, right? But that's not who you are, right? So it's we want to get both because it's also nature related.
And we want it to jar slightly. We want there to be that tension so that there's the paradigm shift. We want people to think, how do these things go together? And so a little bit of discomfort in the right way does a lot of different things. It gets people's attention. It also changes their mind. It also gives you an identity that's yours. So there's that counts for a lot.
Yeah.
Just a quick conversation on school versus program. So this is something Ali and I were discussing, and you might have strong feelings about this, Marcin, but it's just something worth talking out. That in this, the way I'm going to present the school side of this is very much as a program rather than a separate school. And we wondered whether there's a strength to that, because then when Ali's promoting the school, he can be promoting the master brand with great clarity. It won't be like he's trying to say, okay, there's this school, but there's behind that, there's also this other organization. And so therefore sort of dilute the take the audience in two slightly different directions. Whereas if we can say, this is all part of OSE, and by the way, you can sign up for this program, I just wonder whether that's has greater clarity. Now, I'm going to show you another route where we do it more as a standalone identity, but in this context, it's more of a program.
Okay, my immediate comment is that it's consistent with a branded house as opposed to a house of brands.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Exactly it.
So when we get into program communication, we sort of people become more important here, or the target audience becomes more important, and we can represent the target audience, whoever they may be, as a particular person that we feel is the right person. And so then you begin to have this they kind of take the place to some degree of the organic element in the conversation. And so then we're throwing questions at the audience, trying to get them involved. And so, do you want to do this or this? Again, why don't you do both? And so again, we're trying to bring together two different worlds. You can see in this context, the open source ecology logo, we've got the butterfly, but it's not connected to the logo. It's in a slightly different place. And so in some situations, we might just have less organic material. Some will have none, but it will change depending on how we want to use it.
Did you, was the green for the top as in the color of ecology, was that intentional, or did you want to do like learn in white and why not in green?
I'm trying to create a system. It's not, we got to be careful not to be too rigid with the system, because otherwise it doesn't always work. So I've kind of had the call to action in white, because that's more the getting things done. And the question, sort of what could happen, it seems slightly further away from the technical left brain world. And so that's why I've colored it like that. I've also used the underline, because then we're bringing the line back in. And so not only is it in white, but it's also, we're continuing the graphic language, we're continuing the kit of parts, and we're using them in a different way, but in a way that overall brings everything together.
I see white is action. Yeah, the green is concept.
But as you'll see just in a moment, there's a slightly other way we can take it as well. So this could be a pull-up stand at a recruitment fair. And so this is your potential target audience, and this is all the things they've become through the process. And then the question at the bottom is, what could you be? And then, as you can see with the logo here, there's no butterfly. It's just the simple. It's two color. It could be simpler than that, but there's a simplicity there. And so it's very aspirational. Here's someone who's like you, who's become a superhuman. And the difference between the white and the green in this context is that some of these are more like trades, and some of them are more like intellectual pursuits. And so one is more embodied, and so it's green, and one is more abstract, and so it's white. So I'm trying to think these things through as much as possible, but there's a degree to which we got to be careful not to have too rigid a system, even though I love a system. And then if we get that as an entire stand.
Did you actually think of like shirt color would be green, or no? You're not there yet.
I'm kind of thinking. Well, I don't know how you'd approach this. I'm trying to think. It'd be nice to have some sort of branded clothing, but not become too militaristic about it. It's not too. So that because just approaching it as a brand guy, I'm thinking it's nice to have a sense of uniform. but you don't want to have a uniform that means that everyone's so rigid and constrained and that they imagine that they're joining the army, or there's something like that. The other extreme of being hippie, where everyone's just completely whatever they like, whatever they're wearing clothes that are completely impractical to any heavy engineering, heavy machinery use, that seems wrong too. And so it's trying to get a place. So I've kind of picked people with clothing that to me seemed like it would be hard wearing. It would be simple but well made. It would be I put it in the brand colors for the sake of the presentation more than anything. And so where I'd be representing people, I'd want to make them seem on brand. But when it comes to the actual people at the school or doing the program, I wouldn't want to be too say, why have you not come in your school uniform today?
And also, I think, I mean, eventually we would want to take real photos of people who are actually doing the work. These would be real. The authenticity is essential. So it would be like, we would, practically, the way I could imagine it is we would film a build so that we could have a lot of good content out of it. And then we would do interviews probably with these people so we get a sense of who they are and their story. And then the same person who's filming would also be a photographer by definition. We get some good shots and we would decide, with their consent, we're going to use you guys as the faces of, this particular aspect of getting people to sign up.
The way I was thinking about it is when we're doing a 5-day build with 24 crew, we got a uniform. Other times now, or if you were guiding a build, so we got several of us, like 3 to 6 of us, we're the guides, and everyone else is regular clothing.
Got it. That makes complete sense.
Yeah,
that's good. I think we probably want to avoid showing everyone in the uniform because it gets culty. But we would use probably, we would maybe have an interview with you and whoever else, and they're wearing that, and that's great because you guys are in the leadership position.
Yes.
But where we want to kind of profile, this is all about, if I'm deciding whether or not to do this, I want to see the other kind of people who've done this. And we get a sense of like, right, okay, they look pretty cool and normal. And, here's about who they are. I identify with that. I'm going to sign up.
It's very much about they're as relatable as possible, and yet their CV looks like that's incredible. I could never do that, but and yet somehow the opportunity's there. And so just to go back to this, so we can't win this fight. We don't have historic buildings. We don't have 200-year history. We don't have thousands of students who can pass on the message, but we can win this. We can win this war. And so these are the same prestigious universities. This is the way they present themselves in public, which is really quite disappointing. I don't want to go to any of these places based on this. There's nothing aspirational here apart from the most obvious boring choices of things. So I could be a doctor because I could be someone standing in a lab with some other people wearing all white clothes, or I could go and be near that. So none of this is exciting. It's not well presented, and so if you can imagine this is your alternative. We can win this, even if we don't have the buildings, the architecture, the history, all that sort of thing.
So, we mute. Just noticing there's a lot of noise coming from your from OSE. There's exciting things happening, which is good. But it's funny. I was in Belfast over the weekend and was up at a place called Coromila, which is a conflict resolution center founded in the late 60s during the Troubles. And my uncle was one of the directors for about 20 years. And we were talking, and I actually mentioned you guys, because he was talking about how they send university students to Coromila to kind of learn about like conflict resolution, who have had no conflict really, of course, in their lives. And they're entering a very different context. And he was saying how when he speaks to those students, very often they're expressing this sense of, which I think is part of your story as well, none of this is applicable. Like this is so abstracted and so disconnected from something real and that can have an impact. So for me, this is quite exciting because I think there's a real opportunity for that position of when people are deciding for university, and there's also an opportunity for the people who are in it who go, this is not for me after 2 years. I need something else, so that's we can think about that in the executional sides of it, but it just kind of this just reminded me of that.
So if you come into the hall where this is happening, you walk up to the table and then you pick up a a program prospectus. And for example, it could be called Civilization Builders. And so open source ecology, civilization builders, and then you can begin to see how the graphic language extends even further. So now you've got a bit of a circuit board, which actually is almost in a natural form. And so it's so natural that the dragonfly is happy to interact with it. And so again, we're getting the same message across, that this is nature and technology in harmony with one another, and we're doing a program on that. So yeah, sorry, just to repeat that. So, but we've also thought about other different names that you could have, and there'd be many more than this. Civilization builders, future builders, master builders. I was thinking back to the Lego movie, where the guys who gain the power to create anything become master builders, whether architects, designers, civilization restart, civilization reboot, global village apprenticeship. So there's lots of things, and you'll, I'm sure, have further ideas on this, but just showing that we could approach this from a number of different ways.
This is for school in particular, as opposed to OSE.
Yes, yeah. So the open source ecology sits above that, and then you have the program underneath. Social.
Just to pause there, I think this is an important point, right? That we can help you figure out, and then we get to something that is specific for what we've been describing so far as the school, because there's also other elements within the school. There's there's one aspect of it which is the full 4 years. There's one aspect which is coming for the 2 weeks, taster. Like, what's good, this is something Alan and I talked about last week. Like, and I'm fairly convinced that this model where open source ecology is the central node and any program sit underneath it is going to be our path to success. Because when I put myself in the mindset of the videos and the social media videos, it's a lot of heavy lifting to introduce people to open source ecology and then introduce them to this whole other brand, which is the school. Instead, what a nice place to be is that we go, hey, open source ecology, this is groundbreaking and amazing. This is the thing you're joining, and there's different programs that come out of this, and then we can micro target those more specifically, so that we go for the 18 to 25-year-olds, one thing. For the career transitioners, it might be that we think of a different social media video, for example. The 3-minute hero video, we will focus on, well, we need to figure this out together, but we would focus on really open source ecology and then a call to action into a particular options of programs. But the viewer needs to understand that what they're buying into is you, an OSE, and that, hey, actually, there's a lot of options of what you can do, because OSE is the entity that's building the future.
The house of brands.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. And just to follow on from that, so on the left, we've got a sort of a social advert, which we have the blue around the outside, which suggests the master brand. And so learn a trade or go to college. Why not do both? You've got the person, and then you've got the call to action is the green. So the green represents the program. And it could be, as Ali's saying, there were other programs and they could be different colors. But just right now, we've got the light green. And so then we've got the open source ecology, civilization builders 4-year program. Learn over 20 trades, master collaboration, build your own house. 24 places available, start September the 1st. And so then you can sign up directly from that. And so again, we can choose the target audience that we want. They can be the person on the page. We can have the appropriate question for them, and then we can have the sign up call to action. And then on the right, we've got 2 examples of just what the website, the program-centric web pages would be like. They would be in this lighter green, and so you can scroll up and down within the OSE website, which would be the darker blue in general. But this would, you're in the program area, because the background color would be different. Now, again, these are sketches. These are done quickly just to give you an impression of the sort of worlds you'd move between as you go from different parts of the brand. And so just to go right back to the beginning of this would be the master brand toolkit, and then in comparison to that, you'd have the program toolkit. And so you can see how the colors flip. And so what was dark green becomes light green, and then the plants become the darker shade of green. And so it's a similar set of colors, and they're all but they're very slightly tweaked depending on the context, so that you know that this is a family relationship or family relation, not a completely different person, as you go back and forth between the two.
So the one with the blue is for what, and the green is for what?
So logo top corner, top left corner would be, so this would be open source ecology. So this is the master brand. This
Okay.
is where you'd see that most things would be
Ah,
this. Most things would be this. And then there would be, when you go up to the
programs.
table and pick up the prospectus, it would be green. It would be green in the context of the blue. And then, yeah, as
Yeah.
just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
this
then
is,
yeah. So I mean, and that's an important thing because yeah, I mean, it's like really, you kind of subliminally train your mind to, okay, this is calls to action, right?
this is calls to action. All this is so again, we're using those colors in a number of different ways. So it's the green is the the white is the call to action, the green is the question in one context. Another one might be that the green is the trade versus the white is the sort of an intellectual activity. But then this in the bigger picture, the green is the school is the program, the school, whereas the blue is the master brand. And so one is the parent and the other one is the child, and so you know where you are with each. And so if you want to go on the course, you go towards the green, but that green is often presented in the context of the dark blue. I'm rambling at this point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so this route is an evolution. It's to try and say this is where you were. This is taking what you were and making it truer to itself and making it more relevant to the modern audience. Not the modern audience, the audience that you're going for now. The next two routes take us further away from this, and so might be a bit more uncomfortable. But again, it's a different way of thinking about the same problem.
And right now you're saying that all of these three are potentially all valid. Like do
Absolutely.
you have a favorite or?
I try not to have a favorite. I am going to put my cards on the table and say that I think the first is the most appropriate. But my aim in any presentation like this is to give my client a very difficult decision. I want you to feel I don't know what to do, because I want different avenues of exploration to be thoroughly explored, and so that whatever the decision you come to is more likely to be the right decision. Because I don't want to give you one good answer and then two not so good ones, and so that you go for the one I want. I want there to be genuine possibility of choice.
Because that's like an exam, because now I have to think about it. Oh, okay, well, what about this and that? Think about the essence.
Yes,
more.
It gets you to think hard about it. Well, who really am I then? Is this one more who I am, or is that one more who I am? It's also a way that in order to get the work better, I will compete the routes against each other. So when I'm working on one, I might have a good idea, and then I might think, okay, I want the other options to get to the point where I would prefer Marcin to choose those. And so I use them to play in a constructive way, to play off each other in order to all of them to get better.
Do you play them off each other as when you're doing one, you actually go back to the other and modify?
Yes, exactly. So my hope is that if I have an idea that I think is really good, I will end up with another idea I prefer more. So that's the challenge I set myself, so that I don't just settle for the one I think is good up front. But that way, that produces the best work in my experience, and the best choice for you. So
just to add to that, I mean, I've gone through this process on both sides of it many times, and it's not easy. Like, because especially what Al's created, I think they're all very strong, and so it's about sometimes it's about really starting from a beginner's mind. I don't know if you know that phrase from Zen Buddhism. It's like kind of go into a space of not knowing, because my sense is I always get this impulse, like with Kainos or with Rebel Wisdom rebrand, just the impulse of like, I love that one, and then after a few days I'm like, actually, there's a little bit here, and yeah, so just I would suggest to stay very open-minded and curious as you go through the process of choosing. But
thank you, Rami.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, do we actually get to blend them? No, you don't really look at that, or is it possible to blend a little bit?
I think we got to be careful about the keeping the core polarity that's in each of the visual languages. The risk of blending is that you end up with a kind of Frankenstein's monster. Is you end up with something it's got lots of qualities, but the qualities don't cohere together. As it's like trying to have a car that's a plane, that's a bicycle. all of those things are good in themselves. Could you make something that does all of them? Maybe you could, but it would probably suffer as a result of being any one of those things.
Yeah.
And I think it's important also that a brand identity is a lot of no's rather than yeses, or as well as yeses. You want to be to have an identity. You also have to say, there's a lot of things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to look like this. I'm not going to use that sort of imagery. I'm not going to do that, in order that what you are is extra strong. And so I would say that as a warning.
A metaphor I find useful for that, because I think myself, I have exactly the same impulse, and there's a part of me that thinks anything can be blended together to my detriment creatively sometimes because of the, and for example, I play traditional Irish music and I really like techno. And sometimes I'm like, surely these things go together. And every time I found someone who's doing it, I'm like, they don't go together. And I kind of now know why, because the rhythms are too different. And there's never been a good combination of them. Some things do go together. So there's elements you can like swing music and electro and techno actually do blend fairly well together if you get it right. But it's really tricksy. And in a way, the reason swing music works or techno music works is because it's a genre that has its own rules and containment, and it is one thing, isn't another thing. And as soon as you break those enabling constraints too much, then it just falls apart. I wish it didn't. I wish everything sort of combined, but it is what I've noticed too.
Is that because it's not refined enough, or no, it's a different concept?
It's just too different. It's just creatively, it's just too different. And yeah, you could refine. In fact, my sense is that the more you refine it, the harder it then becomes for genres or design concepts to blend together, because they become more like themselves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Like themselves, meaning neither of the two?
Yeah, they become more distinct. If you're going to refine it, like, whichever one you choose, Al will go and really refine it and draw out the essence of it. It will become more itself. It'll become like when you add salt to a dish, it tastes more like whatever's there. It's similar in the sense that the more something becomes like an ownable, like Apple, it's just like, okay, it's got so much weight and history that's in it. It's really weird if you suddenly saw like Apple combined with Twix bars. You'd be like, no, these things don't work. Like, but if Apple were a loose kind of brand that could be many things, it would maybe easier. Super random example, but hopefully it kind of gets the point across. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Let's continue.
So this is thinking back to moral intelligence and the way I defined it, which is not exhaustive, but of being many ways of seeing something, a way of seeing the world from lots of different angles and putting them together. Also being able to see further into the future and what's ahead is a key part of this too. And this was a quote from John Ruskin, which I just love this quote. So he says, "The greatest thing a human soul ever does in this world is to see something and tell what it saw in a plain way. Hundreds of people can talk for one who can think, but thousands can think for one who can see." And so this is about seeing this route. And so you're looking through a window into the possible future. The text is kind of coming out to meet you. And what's the text saying? It's saying the future is open. And what does that mean? It means two things. It means firstly that the future is open and available to you, but it's also saying that the future is open source. And so those two things exist together. And through this window, we can see various different things. And then when we get to the logo represents a number of different things here. So it's the O on the outside is for open source. Then you have the cog inside, which is for hardware. And then you have the flower inside that, which is for nature. And so once again, you've got all three of these, you've got these various meanings that exist in this circular shape. And so this route is very much about how you can use circles. And it's starting from the O, but it's also the O, starting from the O of open source as the core point, but it's then saying that there's ways we can interact with that capture various different meanings of what you're about. And because it's a flat one color logo, you can use it in lots of different ways and lots of different places. It's very, as a mark, there's a simplicity to it, which means that it's very flexible. So again, just a quick brand toolkit. But circles can also be nodes. They can be networks. They can be collaboration. And we've got to be slightly careful of mixing meanings here, but that can be handled sensitively. And so for like a university...
What do you mean by mixing meanings?
So a circle as a node is not quite the same as a circle as a window through into something else. And so I would say when you're using an object to mean quite different things, you've just got to be careful about how you mix those meanings. Otherwise, you end up contradicting rather than complementing. But I think that's something that can be managed. And so in this situation, the nodes themselves they're also little windows. And so there are all these different people who believe in this potential future. And so it becomes the question, the future is open, are you? And so that calls to a certain type of person as well. It is the open-minded person. And if they are open-minded, then you can build something together with these people. And I just thought in this context, it'd be interesting to if you had a stand, to have people there who are examples of previous students or maybe current students. And so that people can actually interact with them and see because you're trying to build people. And so if you've actually got the product, if the product is the person, then they're there for you to have that conversation with. You can interact with the product, and essentially. Just bear with me. I'm going to close the window because there's some noise outside. I'll be back in a minute.
Does that guy have the OSE logo on a jacket there? Is that the logo? I can't see the detail.
I think it is. It is. If I zoom in, yeah, it is.
Okay, cool.
It's actually quite nice on a jacket.
Yeah.
It's quite fun to have. I've had that with a few of my companies, and actually even with my my publisher did it for my book because they made this amazing logo. We sent out the t-shirts to, for example, people who've signed up. It's a really nice thing to get in the post. But they get a t-shirt, they get something that makes them feel a bit part of it already.
Did I miss something? Sorry, when I was just my chair.
No, I think we're good.
No, we're good. We were talking about the logo on whether it was a logo on his jacket, which it is.
Yes.
Because I zoomed in.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Cool.
Social media advertising, again, using the circle. I just thought this was a fun thing because the fact that you're looking for kind of seemingly contradictory people. And so are you ambitious and collaborative? That's you. And if that's you, then why not check out? And this is the sort of thing that people want to look at. People like Venn diagrams. And so if I was flicking through and I was seeing lots of junk in social media, but I saw this, I would stop to look at that.
Hold on a second. And when you do that OSE, like the icon in green at the top left.
Oh, sorry, that's ignore that. That's from the next route. So that's my mistake. So we'll forget you've seen that. That's my bad. We're going to move swiftly on there.
Okay.
So again, similar to before, we're using a change of color. We're taking an existing color from the brand, the mix, and then using that as the program. And so this is an example of a person who's interested in lots of different things, and they're putting together these different worlds. Now, what these images would be carefully considered, but for now, it's something natural, it's something technological. And we could have put other people in this mix as well, so it's a network of people that you might be joining. But the overall purpose is that we can use these nodes as windows through that are all connected together in a creative way. And this all relates back to the circular shape of the logo, which has all these different ingredients in it. And then just further examples of what you could do with those circles. They could layer on top of each other. And so like you have an interesting relationship, say, with the emerging out of the tree rings, which become the sparks of someone doing welding. But then the website could be a connection of little dots that you can click on these different circles to go into different places. And some of them would be actionable, and some of them would just be have something visual there to look at. And so once again, master brand versus program toolkit. And so open source ecology in this sense, we still have the logo and it sits above future builders. And so if we could just go back and forth, you can see the relationship between those two. And we could have quite a wide color palette. So we have the basics of the blue, the yellow, and the white, and then we have secondary colors for all the different nodes. And they could and there'd be a light and a dark, depending on whether it's a light background or a dark background. You'd have different versions of those colors. So there
light background versus dark background.
So sorry, that wasn't very clear. So in this sort of situation, we've got a yellow background there, and so if we took some of these nodes that are on the right hand side, that pink at the top and then the blue underneath, that would jar too much on the yellow, and so we'd have to have a slightly different version of those colors to sit on the yellow, for example. And that sort of thing is something that would need polishing and working out. At the moment, it's rough, and so it's work in progress. But it's just to give an example of how that could work. And so there's a very different route there. It's very different to what you've got currently, apart from the fact that you're using yellow and it's using yellow and blue. So your color palette isn't that different, but the actual representation of the logo mark is completely different. But it's not completely different. It's the right spirit of the organization. It just doesn't look like what you've got currently.
And what's the color palette below the yellow and blue, the smaller color palette?
So that's simply what I was saying, where if you have the main colors would be the yellow and the blue for backgrounds, for dark backgrounds. But then if you would want to do the little nodes in a color, that would be the range of colors you could pick from underneath. So there'd be a wider color palette for that.
And really stay away from others. This is like already well thought out, or
this is not well thought out yet. It's me this is in progress, me thinking, okay, we'll need a light and a dark version of each of those. It would be something that I'd need to test each of them to make sure that the colors are appropriate. And so it's partly me showing that you could have a broader range of colors, and it's partly a reminder to myself that I would need to pay attention to what those colors and work them out with greater clarity down the line.
What's your process for doing that? Is that a thing, like color selection?
It's a very gut process approach for me. So different things would affect my use of colors. So for example, if I was designing something for children, I would head much more towards primary colors. If I was doing it for adults, those colors would become more complex. If I was doing something that was natural, the colors would become earthier, and so they would get dirtier in a sense. If it was technology, it would tend to be very bright, because there's a purity about, so almost neon colors. And these are just starting points. It's just that people have certain associations of colors with different realms, different worlds, different industries. And so I would start from that place and try and do what's appropriate. I mean, for example, with Route 1, I was inheriting the fact that you use blue because of the blueprints. But what can we do with that blueprint to make it appropriate? Well, I wanted it to sit between the two different worlds of being both quite technical, and therefore the light blue, but then natural, which tends to be earthier and a bit dirtier. And so it becomes and so that influences the decision. But then
go ahead.
But then colors themselves have particular meanings. So yellow is associated with obviously brightness, with optimism, green to do with natural. And so there's these things, there's a lot of layers as to when it comes to choosing appropriate colors.
Here you have 4 of the main ones and 10 below that. I forgot how many you had in the other one.
I had less, so that was quite a pure.
So just okay. Is that because you didn't get to the other ones, or?
No, I just thought this was very much about the relationship between either the green and the white. Yeah, between the green and the white, and it needed a context color. So in this case, that was the dark blue, and then the white and the green could play off that context color. And in this case, the context color was the light green, and then the dark green and the white played off each other. Yeah. And so it's one of those things that I've got so many intuitions about color that if you ask me a question, I can give you an answer. But if you said, can you give me a 10-page explanation about these things, I would find that much harder. I've experienced use of color so many times that I know why I do it. And so a direct question and answer, I can come back with, I would do it for this reason. It'd be much harder to create a systematic philosophy of color use based on my knowledge, because it's just so gut. It's so intuitive to me.
It may not be systematic, but you can write those 10 pages, right? You can go on in terms of how you feel, like all the different elements of it. There may not be a system, but there's a bunch of reasons. Like,
yes.
Is that?
Sorry, my son's just at the door. I'm just going to answer that. Bear with me.
Right. Yeah, just on that. I mean, it's interesting. Like I'm not particularly color focused as a person. I'm more narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I talked to John Vervaeke about this. I have trouble remembering colors. Weirdly,
Hmm.
my wife is wearing a
Hmm.
shirt. She's like, "Well, what color was my shirt yesterday?" I'm like,
Huh.
blue or green." So, but what I've noticed is that you don't need that many. Like with Rebel Wisdom and Kainos, both of which Al did. We had like three colors, and I think with Kainos, I've basically used those three, and it's created. But it depends entirely on the brand. You know, that simplicity is right for one route, and then for another route, because it's going to live in different ways, it'll kind of you'll need more.
So this is like multiple intelligences. There's even color literacy. There's storytelling literacy.
Yeah, it's a strange job
Hmm.
being a brand designer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun job. It's a really, really fun job.
Hmm.
But it's yeah, you're trying
Yeah.
to it's the science of meaning or the technology of meaning. I think is kind of what branding is. Maybe that's just a bit too that's me
No, I think that's very
being
cool.
smug and highbrow about it.
No, it's cool though, because in my experience working in the space of it is that sometimes these moments happen where you see something and you're just like, that's it. Like that's that brand. Like that is what they are, and the meaning is I guess encoded so specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with that.
very much so.
Hmm.
So concept three again. So this is the most far out one,
Hmm.
but fun to just compare to the other two. And I'm not just presenting it as a to play off the others. This is again a possible way to go.
Okay. I'm ready.
So I'm starting from the language of machinery and building, and specifically the stencil language. And this is an interesting language because it means a lot of different things. So it's often in the context of using heavy machinery, but it also so stencil means construction because that's where it's you see it. It also means modular in some ways because you've got the different parts of the letter come together to make the complete letter, and it also in that sense means collaboration.
How collaboration?
Because if you look at this N, it's got three parts. If you took any one of those away, it would stop being the N. And so
Mm-hmm.
they are, in a sense, collaborating together in order to make that final form. And so this is the thing you shouldn't have seen before. So these letters are stenciled, and so that's suggesting this is a construction organization. So they're making things, they're building things, but also there's a subtle use of this coming together of different parts to make the whole. And also, the O has an interesting part that can play in this because if you take the O and make it big, the O can be a space where things happen. So, open source, the O of open source is the context in which we rebuild civilization. And so that can become like brackets which contain this other meaning. And what's helpful here is that you can have a typeface which is very, very relevant to you and identifies you immediately. So with the other routes, I mean, the first route with with that kind of geometric typeface, that again got very close to your identity very quickly. This could also get very close to your identity very quickly, make you recognizable quite quickly with very few parts.
I'm wondering, like, okay, that's cool. Why? What's your answer to why you didn't use a similar typeface before? Because it's like, yeah, okay, cool. It just Frankenstein.
Why I didn't use this for the first one?
Well, I like that. Yeah, like the building, the implication of building in the typeface itself. That's strong.
Because why didn't I use this the first time? Partly because I
In
wanted
the first or second model.
because the meaning wasn't quite right. And so in the first one, I'm trying to capture the geometric forms of the original logo and just the geometric spirit of machine making. But I'm also want to have the continuous line. And so I don't want to be breaking up the line into lots of different bits. So the line is about a way of thinking or a way of being in the world, which is related to technology, blueprints, creation of technical drawings, all those sorts of things. And so if I was to break that line regularly, that would break that meaning. Whereas in this context, because I'm not trying to communicate that, this has a different meaning. And this is a good example. Actually, this is a helpful example of where you can't easily combine these things without breaking something.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing you could do here is you can be quite modular with the information. So you can have blocks that stick onto other blocks like Lego bricks, and that becomes part of your visual language. And so your website can be a series of blocks stuck together with text blocks stuck together. And then in certain circumstances, you might want to do that in the context of this broken O, not broken, this O that becomes the brackets.
And what's the challenge to, I like the blocks stacking together. What's the challenge to that? Because I'm like, whoa, that's cool. My immediate critique would be, okay, so you got to make the images consistent with one another. Is that a challenge, or this is doable?
To make them complement each other, you'd have to have a variety of different things. And so the more different they are to each other in some ways, the better. So we've got a big person here. Then we've got a whole group of people, but they're in black and white. So they're immediately quite different. Then we've got this sort of symbolic picture of the hands coming together. It's a little bit cheesy, but it very immediately, that's a one meaning image. Hands coming together equals collaboration. Then we have the drawing of the tractor. And then that's done. I've rendered that in a yellow just to make it on brand, as it were. But the key thing that's going on here is just difference, but unity in variety, diversity and unity. And so you wouldn't want to have 4 pictures of fields, because that would, firstly, that would be rather boring in terms of its meaning, but secondarily, it would be it wouldn't be enjoyable to look at, because like a good football team or a band, you want to have people playing different instruments, and so you want the composition to be made up of different parts. And if they're all together, then that says unity. So it's essentially there is oneness in this multitude of different things. But again, it just guides people in, if this becomes part of the visual language, then people know that if we're using images and text, we need to put them together in this modular way. And so again, that begins to look like you.
So the brackets outside, that means it's all together, right?
That means it's all together, or just the fact that they're all connected to one another. All the images are lining up with each other, so they're lining up at the corners. It's not that they could be coming slightly out from each other, but they're up against each other. And there's as with the O here, there's a very slight gap in between the letters. I've tried to keep a very slight gap in between the images. So we're just trying to be consistent with the meaning of the graphic language, so that we're always building a language as we go. And so this identity, I'm running out of water, need some water.
See how hot it is. That's why I keep turning my camera off and going off. I'm like opening windows and getting water, trying to get like a breeze going through the house.
There's just no breeze at all, though, is there? Nothing. Sorry, my wife is just calling to see if my son has got home. Bear with me.
That's right. Well, while you do that, Mike just pulled up 2 images that I think is useful in terms of like design. Hold on. Let me just find. I'm gonna go here.
Yes.
So like, okay, here's like Swedish. This is more interior design, just to give a sense, right? Here's like Swedish minimalism, right? Scandinavian, similar colors, etc., right? And then there's also like you have on the other side of the spectrum, maximalism, right? So this is the design that this route is neither of these things, but I think what's interesting is that like in maximalist design, you just there's a shitload of stuff going on, but there is a coherence to it. It's not like, it's interestingly like not just like you can throw anything together, because it kind of works, right? You're like, okay, it's chaotic, but the point is to have these many different elements. But you could never take this stuff and then put it into this Swedish design. That just you can't really combine them, because the whole point of this, the brackets around this are the simplicity, and the brackets around this are the complexity. And so there's always, I think there's often a polarity and a kind of question of where where you want the brand to sit. There is still a coherence, I think, in this route much more than the maximalist, super colorful, interiors I just showed you. But one of the things I like about this is that it allows lots of different things to happen. And that's something we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about what OSE is going to do in sort of, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. I think all the routes do this, but like there's an element of like, okay, we can contain all sorts. Maybe you make spaceships in 5 years. I hope you do. That would be great. But yeah.
So moving to school, and it is school this time. Another interesting meaning of stencil is revolution. So we've got construction, we've got modular, collaboration, and rebellion. And so how can we use that in a way that to be disruptive of the status quo? And so one way we can do it like this, we can have messages which are at odds and slightly shock people, at odds with the status quo and slightly shock people. And so the idea that you shouldn't live sustainably, you should live regeneratively. Don't try and save the world, rebuild it. And then you go and pick up a brochure and don't waste your life. And so
I love it. Yeah, that's right.
And so and then that continues across. So the advert would be some sort of something that upsets people slightly, but there's a good reason why you're upsetting them. It's not just to get attention. And then just thinking that if you're very often those sort of stencils are done at an angle. So could it be that the school, everything's slightly on an angle, and so there's that sort of rebellious spirit is there throughout everything. And so the stencil suddenly becomes a very different meaning in this context. Previously, it meant kind of a kind of gentle collaboration of working, putting things together. And here it's a rebellion against the system, but it's all contained within that sort of stenciled way of seeing things, or contained with the symbolism of the stencil.
Man, it sounds like we're going for different audiences.
Yeah, this is quite a different.
So that would mean, what's that mean?
This is the very interesting question for you about these decisions, right? Because in a sense, executionally, I can take any of these and speak to multiple audiences, but we're speaking to, in a sense, different parts of them. So here we're very much speaking to the rebel inside them. Before we're speaking to the part of, the first route, we're speaking to really like the part of them that wants to change the world. And there are variations where we can speak to those different parts in any of these routes, but each of them has a leaning and an essence, which is more of that. And this one is definitely more the rebel. And so that's really a decision for you to be like, if you imagine 24 people, how rebellious do you want them to be? How much do you want them to be more on the side of, kind of grounded systems change? So it's so many. Yeah, it really comes down to the essence that you want to create, and also the future of OSE for you as it evolves. Like, it's how do you want it to evolve? That's the question for when you make these decisions.
But I think key for this route is that we do have space not to be the rebel, so we are also this, and so this is you're not simply reacting against the world, and so you're not the punk who's saying, I don't believe in any institution, but I haven't really got anything to replace institutions with. You're saying, yes, we're going to rebel against the status quo, but behind that is a safe and considered, or not necessarily, a well-considered and wise approach to how we make progress in these areas. But you can imagine how much that would get conversations started at you may not be popular with the other universities at the fair, but you'd be remembered. And then there's just the conversation of this being more of a school, and so OSE is more of a little thing that you add on to the top of the school identity. And so rather than being something that's very much a program that you run, this begins to have more of its own identity. And that has challenges, and we don't have to do it like this, but I wanted to show one where we did do this. And then again, we've been thinking of names, but these are just sort of starters for 10. And some of these things may not be trademarkable because America's a big place, and I don't know quite the trademark laws. Ways of getting around that would be if you were to stick OSE on the front of whatever you're doing, then so you could be the OSE
World Shaper Academy.
World Shaper Academy, precisely. And so therefore you would have ownability by the fact that you've added that tiny little thing to the front.
Do each of these have higher focus on mother versus daughter brand, mothership versus program, or they're all kind of, when you think about this, they're all kind of equal on a level? Like you develop the OSE brand and the product brand kind of equally, or
in terms of the emphasis, in terms of this one's got more of its own identity.
right.
So this is very much, and that's not to say that the OSE brand is weaker, but there's more of a difference between the two. That would make it more of a challenge in order to establish the school as a thing in itself, like Ali's been saying, versus the mother brand. But in terms of when it comes to designing these things, sometimes I might find something that's working for the school and then backtrack and create the master or the mother. Sometimes it might be the mother is what, generally the mother would come first, and then I'd be thinking about the school. So with this one, it very much sort of happened that I think I came across stencil as rebelliousness first, and then I just looked back into stencils and how stencils are used, and found that the breadth of symbolism within stencil would allow for two quite different bodies.
Can you give me a brief summary of mother, daughter for each of the three?
Well, that's,
or no?
I can do that.
Is that too difficult?
I'll do that right now because we got concept comparison, so I've got all three of these together at the end. So it's perfect timing for that. So for route one, mother is how would I say this? The mother is what's the best way of putting it? Maybe I should go to the school first. So the school is the child, and so very much sits within the identity of the mother. It takes all its cues from the mother. Everything that it is just a variant of what the mother is, and so it's visually different and is therefore useful for when you want to differentiate between the two different audiences. And it could grow apart as you use it. It could be that you find that you're using different tone of voice, different language when you're speaking as the program rather than the mother. But it still sits in the same world, and so people will not distinguish, will not think this is an individual that is different in kind from the parent. It's not grown up and left home, as it were. It still very much sits within the same in the nuclear family. Same goes for this one here. Although it's moving slightly further away, there could be a greater use of color, the use of there's more people, the nodes are used slightly more. It's still very much it's still very much attached to the parent. And then with the last one, this is the one that's the most radical move away, because yes, there is a link between the two. They come from the same place, but they have now grown to the point where they are really quite different entities. And so this creates more of a challenge when it comes to tying the two together. But the strength of that is that the school, it could really grow into its own thing in a way that the program could still grow into its own thing, but it would have to gain more of an identity as it goes. So in a sort of long ramble, the first two routes are very much the parent is dominant. In the third route, child and parent are kind of slightly in competition with each other, but in a healthy way.
Yeah, and just to give you a sense of what it might look like executionally, with the first two routes, what me, Wetham, and Perry would be doing is going, hello world, we're OSE, and then really selling what OSE stands for and the big vision, and then going, and we're doing this right now. And then people are like, oh shit, okay. And it may also be that we're doing this right now, but we're going to be doing this in the future. Right now we're doing the house building and what we've been calling school. And so what we're really engaging people around, especially in the 3-minute video, is OSE, like the brand. With the third route, we would still be doing that, but the impetus would be more on the school. Like we would be more focusing on, hey, we're OSE. We have to do that job anyway to explain to them who've never heard of you, who you are, what you stand for. And we're doing this crazy, like what it means is in this third route, we have to really, really sell the Architects Guild, Civilization Architects Guild, or whatever we end up calling it, we have to really make a punchy, like, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing you've heard about in the last month. All of these are possible, and they're kind of a strategic consideration for you to think about, okay, listen, at this point, what is the school its own impetus and entity that you want to be really pushing forward, or is this the new evolution of OSE? Does the school represent just the latest aspect in the story? And it's not black and white in any regard. My impulse, it's a tricky one because there's ways to do both of these, but it is narratively easier to present to a new audience who've never heard of open source, for example, or they've vaguely heard of it, to be like, this is the big vision and we're doing this thing, rather than necessarily we're this is a thing that's happening. So again, it's very tricky. I don't actually want to shut off any options, but it's really up to you, and it's something we, in some sense, can't answer because it depends what matters to you. Like you could say, for example, look, you know what, the OSE brand is always just been leading up to this point, and so really what matters is the guild or the school or whatever we call it. That's really what we want to focus on. My sense generally would be that this is a moment where you can really bring OSE into the world, and that's something to consider, right? And then within that, OSE does these various different, things, and we get a lot of flexibility there. So I don't know if that helps because I've added more complexity, but like the
Yeah,
sort of no
that
right
helps.
or wrong. It really just depends on you and what your objectives are.
Which of the three do you think produces the most irresistible offer, or it's easiest to propose an irresistible offer?
That's an interesting question. I don't want to give too firm an answer. I would say that we can create a story out of any of them. There's something about actually, Al, if we can go back to maybe just the last few routes. So there's something about route one that I think has the elements there that is most authentic to you in many ways and where you've been and where you're going, that we can do this, which is a little bit more leaning into the idea of transformation, hope, and expansion and freshness and like literally new civilization, which I think is very strong. If we go to the next route, um, I personally, and again, this is all super subjective, I love the logo of this. I think it's beautiful. I think it's very much you get the combination of techness, technique and nature. And if you go, I don't know, Al, if you have in these ones yeah, I don't think you put them in here, but I love the Venn diagram
Mm,
aspects. Like that for me,
let me get it.
filmmaking wise, I'm like, okay, there's let's see.
Sorry, getting there.
No, that's fine. Yes, I can do a lot with this filmmaking wise. I can do a lot with the other stuff too, but there is something kind of really cool about this in terms of targeting who we want to sign up. I'm thinking of getting results, right? So I'm like, who do we want to sign up? I can do a lot with this as well. And then in the third route, the benefit there is the rebelliousness and the punchiness, and like Al said, pissing people off a little bit, and I have to be very careful with anything I share because I had a whole brand called Rebel Wisdom where rebelliousness was the idea. I think it's a nice position to hold. My concern with it slightly is that I think 5 years ago when you moved to I don't know, when did you move to the farm? Was it like a little longer, right?
Way longer,
Way longer. Like
2006.
yeah. So way back when there's a kind of three phases, right? Moving to the farm, kind of TED Talk era where you're doing you're kind of presenting
Yep.
first, and now this era. My slight,
Which is OSE 3.0 right now.
yeah.
We're on OSE 3.0.
Yeah. So my slight concern is this doesn't move us very far from OSE 2.0. Like it's very rebellious and cool. And then the question is like, it's a really cool place to occupy, but
Yeah.
do we want the rebels or do we want the people who are going to spend 4 years really dropping in, So but the complexity there is that there's a part of me as a narrative. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, rebel. Let's piss off the universities. Let's have a great social, campaign where we're just like being really irreverent. That's not the only way to have impact though. And in fact, it's the question of what kind of impact we want to have, because that's going to.
Sorry, you don't think that's substantial impact, or it would
No,
be?
no. It's not that it's not substantial. It's that you can do a lot with this narratively. It's really punchy, and Al's done like I love the "Don't try and save the world, rebuild it." Like it's a really strong platform. There's an aspect of it though, if I think about it executionally, where it can be a little bit trickier to then. I don't just want the people who are like "fuck you" to the system, right? Because are they going to stay for 4 years? Are they really going to have the moral intelligence and capacity to do it? Maybe we can work with it, but my inclination is that each of them have strengths and drawbacks, and it really depends on, yeah, it really depends on you. It depends on like when you look at the next 5 years, 10 years, how do you want OSE to evolve, right?
But
So
how, like, man, like this, don't try to save the world, rebuild it. Wow, that's cool. I mean, can't we use that in number one?
We could use this as number one.
use this number one.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it does
yeah.
it doesn't
You
have
look
it doesn't
different.
have quite the energy.
Yeah.
But I think I wonder if it's actually stronger in some, possibly stronger, I don't know, in Route One. And the
Mm,
reason I say that is if I was a parent coming around with my son or daughter and I saw this, I'd be a bit more worried. Um, it would make an enormous impact, and it would definitely excite a lot of people. It might put off some of the key decision makers in the background, possibly.
yeah.
And so I wonder if, I mean, let's go back to.
Interesting thought, isn't it? Because we can absolutely use it in Route One, and it has a little bit more of a contemplative, grounded approach when we use it there. And it actually could be quite punchy. It could be quite powerful.
I
This is one of my favorites. This right here, I can visualize this. I can see this working and landing and recruiting people.
if I failed you in this regard, Martian, because I do have a favorite here, and this would be my favorite page of the whole
Good.
presentation.
Me too.
Because I think it gets across so much in one place, and I think the spirit of it's just right.
Yeah.
It seems technical, it seems natural, it seems credible, it seems like you're going to MIT. It seems it's very relatable. I can see people that I want to become. They're incredible people because of all the things they know. It's got a graphic language that could live for 10, 20 years because you could constantly find ways of putting white lines and diagrams with natural things. You could do that in so many different ways. And so I really like the energy and power of Route 3, but I wonder if it's a sort of short term in the school context, if it's more of a short term, we can really get attention and make some noise, but will it have the longevity? This to me feels like it has it's ownable in a way. I think that the other two, yes, they're very ownable, but they're not quite as ownable as this.
It's
I've
my
never seen anything like this.
Yeah, this is my favorite too. I would say if we're gonna be
Yeah.
not trying to be trying to unbias you, but like this is I think for me I can visualize this and like Al just said, we can in a film in a way sometimes if you have a more grounded brand when you say something punchy, it lands more because you
Yeah.
don't just feel like oh these guys are like trying to be like Monster Energy, right? Like wow,
Yeah.
everything's like intense. It's much stronger when just like if you have anyone in your life who's always very calm, the one time they get upset or very forceful, you're like, whoa, whoa, okay, they really like, they really mean it. And so there's a place, yeah, there's a kind of containment you get from that.
Okay, but if you can be a mechanic and a metal learner, why can't you not save the world but rebuild it?
Yeah, you can do that. We can have that messaging in here for sure. What Al's point was is that it's going to land slightly differently in the
Hmm.
sense that it's in the third route. It's quite a kind of punk, it's probably too strong word, but you get what I mean. It's quite
Yeah.
like boom. In this, we can say the same thing, but the
Yeah.
caveat is that it's going to have a different essence to it or a different energy to it, which is not a bad
But we
thing.
have,
Yeah.
what I'm liking about this one is the integration part,
Yeah.
which is core, because that's how you're going to say the radical things. Only if you
Yes.
could back it up with the integrated skill set.
Yeah.
And also, when it comes to just pure communication, if you say something that's quite edgy, but it's surrounded by beautiful images of nature, again, that's going to
Yeah.
slightly surprise people. They're like, oh, they're saying don't save the world, and yet there's quite lush eco imagery. So what's going on there? And I think that it's such a valuable thing to be able to paradigm shift people at a brand level, because you get so much done so quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
So your problem, not ours.
I love it. No, this is pretty good stuff. What's our next steps here?
So next steps would be you go away for a few days, share this with a few intelligent people you know who would be able to judge this sensibly. So I wouldn't share it with loads of people, because eventually you'll find someone who feels strongly about something that might put them off, which might be just the case for them, but nobody else in the world. So you need to have someone who is wise when it comes to being able to judge visual communication. And then with their input, but ultimately your decision, pick one of the routes. Come back to me with feedback on things that you'd like to tweak or change. I will develop it anyway. So there'll be things like with the logo. If we were to go with this one, I would make the logo absolutely bespoke to you, so that it's not the typeface. That would be one thing I'd do. I'd begin to work on a collection of different natural imagery. So if there were particular plants or in your vicinity where you are that you would want to, I could create a toolkit of those. So it could be trees, it could be plants. We could begin to think about how icons could look, how machines could look when rendered in a particular way. And the outcome of that would be that you'd have a kind of brand book of how the brand is beginning to live. And that would be a guide to anyone else who works on the design from here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How far into the icon look? Let's see. Repeat the last thing you said about the icon look. Like how?
So
how
we
would
could
you?
look. We could look at how. So the wiki page you sent with the icons. We could look at how
Yep.
that could look in context. We could also look at if we were to draw one of the machines and keep it in the flat style rather than the sort of more three-dimensional image that you've got now. So again, again, the reason for doing that would be to show it in a branded way. So not as a technical drawing from which you'd have a specific use like you would with the icons, but a way of presenting your brand in a context where you're communicating to the outside world. And so at the moment we've drawn the house in a style. I could work on that to improve on that to make that closer to the farm building. But if you had a list of things that you'd want to explore, we could discuss those and see what's within scope and what's out of scope. And I'd want to give you a kit of parts that you can use, and it would also inform how this goes forwards. And then once
what do you think about the 500 modules of civilization, the components of all technology? Like a sample
as a
of that.
concept, or whether it's achievable?
Well, no, I mean 500 modules. Just do like one example of how. Okay, so here's the machine. Like we're oriented around the 50 machines, and then we're oriented around 500 modules.
Yeah.
A sample of each.
I could show you how I could take one of the diagrams and show you how it would look in this style, and then I could do a few more icons to just give as a starter. I mean, to do all those icons, if I was to do that, that would be a separate project. But in this context, I could show you how that project would begin, and so that would become part of the tool, the sort of brand book that you have, which gives you an example of how it would go forwards.
Ideally, we do a design guide for people who want to do it, so it's potentially an open project. Do you think that would work or no?
I think in terms of the visual style, it would work. If you believe that it's possible to create a visual language, and you have
crowdsource it.
If you think that's possible, then to produce the icons for it, I think is achievable. Again, it wouldn't be the scope of this project, but it would be another project.
Right, because the idea is that there's going to be a lot of things that we want to communicate, and therefore, I mean, it wouldn't be practical to have you do all of that. I mean, it's going to be it would be a full-time job, and it's so I want to see if, based on the brand work here, we have a good idea of how to start. And like, for example, you did the butterfly, right? What would the bobcat look like?
Precisely. So it'd be things like that. And so, but for those things, I would give you a collection of icons that you could go and use. Sorry, not icons. I would give you a selection of images that you could use to get you started.
But can you get us the source that we can do in, say, for example, Inkscape or GIMP?
I could give you some instruction on how I'd go about it.
Yeah, my suggestion with this would be like it's very difficult. You have to maintain quality control because if you have even a single icon that looks a bit shit compared to the rest of them because it's community generated, it's going to throw the whole thing off. So it's not impossible to do, but I would probably, if I were doing it, I would get Al to do, say, if there's 50 that, how many do you say you think there are the kind of a crucial ones or like
well, there's 50 machines and 500 module, 500
is a huge amount, but I would probably want to get, I'm just pulling this number out, just educated guess, at least 20 icons to create a consistent visual language and have some very strict guidelines if I were open sourcing for the rest of the 500 to be like, okay, if you want to make your own icon, then it has to match these. And that would probably be another part of the scope of work for Al to actually create some guidelines for how someone might open source design 500 icons. But you need enough. Like actually, Al did this for Rebel Wisdom, and we had probably 20 icons or so for different concepts, and we had just a library of we actually only ended up using those because it wasn't the same challenge that you have with their actual parts, their actual things. But we would end up, we didn't make any more, but you need a certain amount to have enough data so that people get what is the look and feel. Like, 5 isn't enough, 10 isn't enough. I think 20 is probably enough. Yeah, so that's just my thoughts on it initially.
Within the scope of this project right now, how many icons can we talk about? Like sample icons. So, few.
I mean, if it's like the ones I think the best thing to do would just send me over the highest resolution collection of icons you've got, and then I'll have a look through and maybe do 10 of them, I'll say, for now. So I do icons to get, and I try and find a range of quite different ones so that I can draw them into a consistent style. And so people can see, oh, even if you're doing one like that or one like that, they still look like they're part of a family. But then probably if you could pick one of the machines that you'd want me to render, I could do a drawing of one of the machines. I'd also go and I'd create flora and fauna, say, I don't know, 10 different bits of flora and fauna that you can compile together that could be part of presentations or could be part of a display stand, or if you wanted to create a PDF and want to have a front cover, all those sorts of things. I'd develop the logo so that it's bespoke to you. So that would probably cover all the time that remains. And then I'd get everything else that exists that we've done so far into a document so that you have everything. You have the beginnings of a guide for people to see. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Can you give us, like, when you give us the icons, you can give us the source, right? Like you can.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Right. Okay. Now, so that's what I'm saying. The scope is way over what for other things. For example, each construction set would want its own icons, 20 to 50 or so times 10, so like 200. Mechanisms. So when I talk about the 500, it's more like mechanisms and algorithms. But those are two distinct things of how civilization is made. Like algorithms, like even in software, how does like a computer vision algorithm look? And you can simplify it actually by, people can. The thing here is that what we want to do is we want to make a technically literate society, so anybody, and this means your grandmother and your child can be designers of the world around them. Like we are democratizing technology, not like how people are talking about democratizing technology today. I'm talking about we get technology. It's our slave, not our master anymore, like in today's society. So for that, we get to do mechanisms, and algorithms are part of that. So we would want a bunch of that. So I'm just saying there's a whole bunch. So what we need right now is, okay, here's the brand. Now here's how we can go forward and start thinking about it. But that's going to be, if we can get to that level within OSE that people actually can facilitate use of these, even to things like, you're doing your automated drones for community support or agriculture food delivery. Yeah. Well, you can draw that thing out in icons or a simple graphical representation that anybody can understand. So it's basically like diagramming on steroids. The icons could definitely help it, and if it's brand integrated, that would be powerful. And it's like, oh yeah, this is OSE.
All that's achievable. I can get you going with a sort of a look and feel for how that can go.
But
do send me a machine that you'd want rendered in the style as well.
Yeah.
And one that would be that would give us much of an impression of for other designs as well. So not one that's too unique or too unusual. I mean, the tractor kind of seems an obvious
tractor, yeah.
Tractor's great, but also not to confuse things too much. But it would be very useful for me and the rest of everyone working on the films to have house-related things, house-related aspects, like, and also a house itself, like that. Just because I can just imagine that we could / would need to use that. We'll want to have some sense of giving that design language of like, hey, this is the OSE, house and roof. I'm not quite sure what the design elements are, but I could just imagine that being useful. I don't think it should be everything. I'm just throwing that in there.
Right. And for example, for the tractor, like, would it be the one we kind of built? Like, you see the current icon, if you just look at one of the one that's the tractor, I mean, do you want it to look like that? Because, for example, one of the things we're going to do in the future is you can put a skin on it, right? So it looks like it doesn't look Mad Max anymore. It looks like a real thing. So in which style do we do it right now, though? Like, do it with the old style?
I'd say the old style. Give me give me a link to a good image of the old style tractor with no skin, and I'll use that because the line drawing is very much close to the sort of technical world, and so we want to keep that spirit rather than too much the outer glossy completed object.
And I could imagine actually. So now this icon actually evolves and it becomes the next generation icon, right?
Yeah,
and that's actually a good historical study of evolution. About evolution.
And I will give you the document where I've drawn it, so you'll know the line widths I've used and other things like that, in case you want to have someone else work on that. I mean, I would love to help with this project down the line if there is budget for this sort of thing. But for now, let's get this to the next stage, and so that you're happy that it's going in the right direction, regardless of whether it's me doing it or somebody else.
Okay, so I know I got to submit the videos, the swarm videos, and all of that to Ali. And
how's that going,
Marcin? By Wednesday. Well, I haven't started, so I got to get on top of it.
That's fine. Yeah, that's okay, because I've got some interviews coming up with various stakeholders this week, so that's okay. Like, I mean, time-wise, but it would be great to Wetham and I are talking this week to just start doing our initial thoughts around it. I mean,
so you said Wednesday, yeah?
Exactly. That's still fine. And also it's sort of, we're trying to be efficient because it's concurrent with which route you end up picking, which directions we go in. There's some things won't change, but it's quite important to know which direction. Also, just as another thought, if you have any films of like the tractor driving, all of that is gold for us. We can use that really extensively. What's another element? And also, if you did you manage to get in touch with Wise about so Al, to give you an update, Wise had some kind of strange on their side mess up, and we're trying to just resolve that about the transfer. But I don't know.
Regarding that, they were asking me for board of directors information to verify the company and all that. I gave it to them, so let's see if
okay. Okay, hopefully it'll just keep us posted. It might be that if it doesn't work, we just do a regular IBAN transfer.
For a video, I have Wednesday to do it. End of day Wednesday.
That's fine. That's still okay. Yeah, and again, don't hold back on like.
Oh, there's tons. You'll be overloaded.
In there. Part of our process will just be sitting down for a few hours. Often Wetham and I will do it together on a Zoom, and we'll just go like, we'll watch everything and go, that's cool, that's not going to work. So don't hold back on quantity.
And Al, for deadline for getting back to you. Okay, my comments and my next my decision.
What's reasonable for you? When do you think you can get back to me? Because
how's like Thursday sound? Is that?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's great. And then we can work out a date, probably a week, roughly a week from then, to do the refinement.
Do the final.
Marcin, my tip would be don't tell anyone what your favorite route is when you're sharing it. That's what I did. I've done a few times. I'd just say, hey, which of these three do you think, knowing everything they know about you and OSE, that they really resonate with? And that's quite useful because if you tell them, then it'll prime them.
Yeah, if I so what I wanted to do is give it to a few trusted people, but I can publish this online too, right? With not pre. I want public input.
I wouldn't get to like right now,
Yeah.
having just released a documentary where I'm getting so much different feedback from so many quarters, it doesn't help. It's too much, right? What I would do is I would give it to whoever, fits that bill. I would give it to maybe 5 or 6 people. I wouldn't put it online because it gets super confusing and the subjectivity related to anything to do with visual imagery is very, very high. And you will get so many disparate, contradictory perspectives. The trick is really to find the people who your partner knows you better than anyone else. Let's say there's going to be someone else in your life who knows the engineering side better than
right. I mean, but I mean, I can combine the two by saying, okay, here's my 5 trusted people. That's who I listen to. But can I publish still on YouTube, right now, and say, okay, well, we will take with a grain of salt what other people are saying. Is that okay? I mean,
I would agree with Ali strongly. I would say don't give yourself that noise.
Yeah, you're gonna have the signal to the noise ratio, no matter how focused you are on just taking it with a pinch of salt. I tell you, I don't know about your inner psychology, but for me, like even being focused on it, like right now I'm taking 2 weeks off the documentary before we do the final cut because I'm just like it's too much. I have like 100 messages from friends. It's just like I would really recommend just doing those 5 people because you probably it's about confirming your sense already. It's that's my recommendation, certainly. I mean, you can do what you want, but I would advise against too many cooks in the process.
No, but that's the thing of compartmentalization, right? I mean, I don't.
It depends, man. It depends on you. I mean, it depends on you.
Look, I mean, we've been so no. My psychology is let me feed the audience because I'm so throttled already. Like nobody's gonna see it anyway.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of how I look at it.
The one thing to consider with it is that you have a legacy audience who know OSE in the past, and we're going for certainly we want to bring them along, but we are kind of going for the next generation. So if you are going to do it, I would just say it's a big pinch of salt because they're going to be coming at it from what they think you are, not what you could be. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. So it's again, I would recommend just doing those 5 people. What I would say, if we can, if there's a compromise in this, do the 5 people. If you don't feel it's there, get in touch with us and share what you think is missing. And maybe we go, yeah, actually, okay, maybe it does need to go wider. But that's what I would say. Maybe do it modular. So it's just like step by step. That would be my suggestion.
What if I post it on YouTube and don't look at YouTube responses?
What? Why post it on YouTube?
Why would you do it though? Yeah.
How would I do that?
No, why would you do it?
Yeah, what would be the
No, I mean, look, because there's one is like backlog of like I publish all the videos I like the last time we talked, I publish that as soon as I'm done. I mean, the thing is why is just I mean, it's just our nature of open collab that we work transparently. Like if this gets lost, there's people that have seen our former talks, and there's not a lot of them. There's only like whatever, like 100. Let's see. Let's see if we could get on the same page on that. I take a look at the last one, and it's got the 1 hour 6, and it's got how many views? nobody's looking at it. There's 64 views, but it's people who care, and
but are you going to be signaling to them that you don't care if you just release this when the project's done? They still get to see. They still get to. If you want to share this idea, you're still getting to do that. You're just not adding noise to your decision-making process. And I guess it's also for our sake as well, because we're not trying to lead you too much into making a decision that we want. We want you to have interactions with trusted collaborators. We just don't want, for the sake of the project moving forward and us being able to make what we think are wise decisions, too many other people that we don't know and just happen to be on your YouTube channel giving their opinion. I just don't know what the value of that is. When if you're wanting to share it openly with people in the long term, just do it later, I would say.
Oh, just do it later.
Yeah, if you really want to share it, I just
agreed. I mean, you know, when I'm writing a book, there's a period where I don't share it with anyone because I know that any input, we're still in an ideation process right now. And in an ideation process, you need this kind of a silo, somewhat of a silo, and somewhat of a sense of a bubble. And then usually what's very good for open sourcing, in my experience with this kind of thing, is when I know where I'm going, but I want to iterate on it, right? Like, if, you know, I don't share any of my writing with anyone while I'm doing it because all the feedback throws me right off. I'm like, no, what I'm trying to do is condense this essence right now. And this is very much about you, Marcin. Like, this is very much about you and all the people that you bring into it is to help you decide what OSE is going to be for the next 5, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And, okay, I understand that like a lot of it's been open source before. I would say that this kind of creative process benefits from a bit more constraint and siloing than later in the creative process. That's my experience, but yeah.
Okay. I'll hold off.
Thank you.
Exciting. I'm really curious to see which what you choose. And by the way, also in terms of your partner, I don't know if she's up for doing a conversation, but it would be or if you're up for that, but it would be really interesting and valuable. It's always interesting to speak to someone's partner about the whole.
Oh, you're talking about on your side?
My side, yeah, for research.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you could connect us, that's great because I've got your
mentor.
mentor.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, she's the #1 person that can provide insight. That's going to be valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with my wife. She's my biggest supporter and most incisive critic for all of my work.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll get that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really valuable. Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, Marcin.
Awesome. Super exciting.
Thank you. This is great. Since you recorded, can you send this to me for future publishing?
Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Thanks, guys. So Thursday by end of day, my day, because that means you get it Friday. Al.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And I'll just send you an email with what I think I want, just so we can get clarity on that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Have fun. Okay. It's gonna be a fun week. It's gonna be a lot of wrangling, but fun.
Yeah. Okay. This is great. Thank you.
Right. No worries. Take care. Speak soon.
Speak soon.